Hey, welcome back. We are broadcasting on KPLR 11.2. That's channel 187 on Charter. So if you have Charter, channel 187. If you have an HD antenna, it's 11.2. And you're watching a live broadcast of KTRS Radio here in St. Louis. You can certainly watch us if you have a tablet or a phone or a phablet or anything like that at stltoday.com. Go to the opinion tab and or ktrs.com. Either way, you'll be able to watch us broadcast a live radio show. Andrew Dowd is our director. Also, you can download the app and listen to our app anywhere in the world, including Copenhagen. I know that because I was there and I did it myself. Also, you can certainly listen online, ktrs.com, and, of course, 550 on your AM dial. Lots has been talked about with Ferguson. Lots has been talked about with Normandy and Riverview Gardens and the school district and the failing school district and what to do about it. Our next guest has written an interesting article about one parent and her struggle to try and educate her children. Naomi Nix joins us. Naomi, you're an education reporter for the 74million.org. You join us via Skype. Thanks for joining us here on KTRS Radio in St. Louis.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about the 74million.org website. What is that?
Yeah, it's a really exciting new nonprofit that the goal is to get education news on the front page every day. So we cover education from a national perspective. We're doing a lot of coverage of the 2016 presidential election, as well as dipping into some of these statewide and local school district issues that have large implications for the general students and parent community.
Sure. So St. Louis has been going through this over the last year or two, and the state law says that hasn't been changed, though they've tried to fight it every which way they can. But the law says that if you are stuck in a failing school district, you're allowed to go to a different school district, and that's exactly what happened. Finally, the courts and they ran out of appeals and exhausted their court appeals. And so I guess now we're working, is this going to be year 3 where children can now still go to these schools? You had a chance to talk to a parent who was directly affected by all of this, and your article appears on the 74million.org. Tell us about Lisa Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, I talked with a number of parents, and Lisa Thomas was one of them. And she was actually a plaintiff on one of the lawsuits in which parents really fought to get this law upheld and to make sure that the receiving school district didn't turn them away. And so, she felt like the Normandy High School was failing her kid. He was being suspended for little things that he shouldn't have been suspended for. His grades were suffering, and she didn't feel like the teachers and the staff at Normandy High School cared about her son. And then he got to go to this other school in the Francis Howell district, and she felt like it was night and day, his experience. His grades went up. He had an individualized education plan because he had special needs, and all of his teachers called her regularly, and they always had, these really great things to say about how well her son was doing. So she has gone to court. She has, worked with the Normandy School District over and over again to make sure that her son is able to stay in the Francis Howell School District.
How many times was the son suspended from the Francis Howell School District?
A number. It's in fact the Normandy High School had the highest suspension rate in the state because they had a lot of discipline issues. And so I think at one point it was like 1 out of every 4 students had been suspended. So he was one of a number of students, and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch has chronicled a lot of the problems that faced that school.
Right, but when he went to Francis Howell, you said his grades went up, his teachers took a much more active role. Was he being suspended when he went to the Francis Howell school districts?
No, he hadn't been suspended at all.
Interesting. So he was part of the element, and the bad part of the school was sort of bringing him down. He goes to a better school, and he's sort of worked up towards the rest as opposed to work down with the other ones. If that makes any sense.
And it was a much more positive environment for him.
Yeah. The Normandy School District and the Francis Howell School District is not very close. It's a burden on the family to send your kid 40 minutes away to school every single day. She didn't have a problem with that?
I think she thought it was worth it. So he rides the bus, and a number of kids ride the bus, and they've had some issues, right? The Normandy School District was only willing to pay for the days that they were in school. So sometimes the Francis Howell District had school when Normandy didn't, and then it was like, whoa, what are they going to do with the kids? How are they going to get to school? But parents were willing, hundreds of parents, in fact, to send their kids just to get a better education.
Yeah. How are the kids doing now?
So by all accounts, the kids have done better, and the influx of students from Normandy has not had a negative impact on the schools, a significant negative impact on the school's test scores.
So hold on a second. So the receiving school districts, their scores haven't gone down, and they have accepted this diverse student population, and they've sort of taken it without a hitch, and it's gone on fine, right? I mean, because we really haven't heard of any problems once the school year started.
Yeah, in fact, a study of this process was recently released, and it concluded that the receiving school districts actually kind of got a boon financially because they got extra money. Right. And they didn't, by and large, have to do much to incorporate the new students. There were a couple of districts that did because they had such a large influx of students, Francis Howell being one of them. But the impact that the receiving school district had was minimal.
Naomi Nix is our guest. She's an education reporter for a website, the74million.org, and she looked at a couple of parents that have gone the extra mile and have begged, borrowed, pleaded their case to allow their children to leave the failing school districts and go to a accredited school district. And all these parents are asking is for all the officials to follow the law. And your heart goes out to these parents who are stuck in these school districts, and it seems like everybody wants to try and do everything they can to keep these kids in these failing school districts, except change the law. So the courts, time and time again, have ruled, no, you have to follow the law. If you don't like the law, change the law. We know the governor has vetoed all sorts of new legislation, and they're fighting back and forth, but the kids and the parents are sort of stuck in the middle. Naomi, the out question is, I know this is all anecdotal, and I know you mentioned a couple of studies, but it seems to me that, where do we go from here? Are these schools so broken, Normandy and Riverview Gardens, that we should just disband them and send these kids all over everywhere else? And why is it that only some parents send their kids to these other schools and other parents want their kids in these failing schools?
Yeah, well, look, they just got a new superintendent who does have some pretty big plans to try to turn this ship around. He's implementing a new electives program. They're definitely revamping their hiring. That's been a big problem. They had to do hiring at the last minute, which meant there was a lot of teachers who weren't certified or weren't, expertise in the subject that they were teaching. I think that there's definitely part of the community that feels like, let's turn this ship around. This is our community. We're proud of our school, and we believe that it can succeed. And then there's some parents who say, no, this isn't going to come fast enough. There was a parent I talked to who said, look, I can't afford to live in another community. And she really fought, back and forth with the Normandy School District. And she's like, my daughter, won't make it if I stay here. I think that you see two different sides of that in the community. So
this student, this Lisa Thomas's child, who went to the Francis Howell School District, who's now doing better, the law hasn't changed at all. Why shouldn't he be allowed back at the Francis Howell School District to continue his education?
Well, there's been some pretty recent news, and look, the Francis Howell, several months ago said, we just can't afford to take, this many students. They had about certainly the highest number of Normandy students, and the courts forced them to take them. So the courts have now forced them to accept her son, and the governor didn't. The governor did veto the state legislator's attempt to fix the law. So I think her son is going to get to go to this school. Now, whether the Francis Howell School District will try to fight this again, it remains an open question. Whether state legislators will be able to, fix this law and fix this situation, right, is also an open question.
It baffles the mind that they want to come up with 800 different policies, procedures, rules, guidelines. Some can go here, some can go this and that, but they can't change the law. They can change the law, they just haven't. And the law says that if you're in a failing school district, you don't have to send your kid to a failing school district. You can go to an adjacent school district that is accredited. So again, these people who talk about rule of law and everything else, if you don't like the law, change the law. They can't change the law. So these parents are doing everything they can to demand their legislators and their officials to follow the law. And this poor woman has to go to court to force all of the experts to do a simple thing, and that is follow the law and allow her child to go to an accredited school.
Right.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong in anything I just said?
No, you're not. I mean, you're not wrong. That's what they did. And part of the other problem was that some parents had trouble getting the Normandy school district to agree that they could transfer. So right. I talked with one parent who said, you know what, she had to, they wouldn't accept, she had to have an occupancy permit. So she spent thousands of dollars trying to fix her home so that it would be eligible for the occupancy permit, so she could prove that she was a resident so that her daughter could transfer.
She had to prove she was a resident of Normandy by getting an occupancy permit so her child could then transfer out of the Normandy school district.
Exactly. I talked with another parent who said, they didn't tell me there was a deadline to apply. Her son was going to the Francis Howell School District. And then, she went to reapply to transfer for the next year. And she was told she had narrowly missed the deadline. And now her son's going to have to go to Normandy High. So for the parents who've been trying to get their kids out of this school district, it has not been easy.
Naomi Nix, senior education reporter for the 74million.org. It's an interesting story about parents and their struggle to demand their elected leaders to follow state law. Naomi, thanks for checking in. Good luck with the story.
Thanks so much.
9:23 here, Big 550 KTRS. Some pretty scary